Picture this. September 1943. A small group of men are paddling canoes through complete darkness toward one of the most heavily defended Japanese harbors in the entire Pacific. They're about to sink 40,000 tons of enemy shipping using nothing but limpet mines and pure audacity. You've probably never heard of them, even though they pulled off one of the most successful raids of World War II. They were called Z Special Unit, and their story is absolutely wild. Z Special Unit was an Allied Special Operations Force that operated in the Southwest Pacific during World War II. Formed in 1942, it was truly international. Australians, British commandos, New Zealanders, Dutch soldiers, and Pacific Islanders all working together under General MacArthur's Southwest Pacific Command. What made Z Special different was their focus. They weren't your typical guns-blazing commandos. They specialized in covert reconnaissance, sabotage, guerrilla warfare, and unconventional tactics. These guys slipped in undetected, gathered intelligence, blew stuff up, and vanished before the enemy knew what happened. They were hybrids between spies and commandos. Headquartered in Melbourne and part of the Allied Intelligence Bureau, Z Special operated with remarkable independence. They recruited people with specific skills like speaking Japanese, Malay, or Chinese dialects. They wanted soldiers who could blend in, think fast, and survive behind enemy lines for weeks or months. The flexibility was remarkable. They could train guerrilla fighters in Borneo, conduct beach reconnaissance in New Guinea, or pull off daring sabotage raids against Japanese shipping. Recruitment was deliberately mysterious. Soldiers got cryptic messages asking if they'd volunteer for special duties with no details. Just a question: are you in or not? This vagueness was intentional. They wanted men willing to take risks without needing all the answers first. Those who said yes came from diverse backgrounds. Police officers who understood surveillance, sailors who knew small boats and navigation, bushmen and hunters who could track and survive in wilderness, linguists and scholars. Tough guys looking for adventure. What united them was willingness to volunteer for something insanely dangerous without knowing the specifics. Training was brutal and comprehensive. Jungle survival, where they learned to live off the land for weeks, silent killing techniques, demolitions with various explosives, small boat handling in rough seas, parachute training, weapons proficiency with both Allied and Japanese equipment so they could use captured gear. They learned celestial navigation, studied local flora and fauna to know what was edible and what would kill them, and practiced resistance to interrogation. Everyone knew capture by the Japanese meant torture at best, execution at worst. The physical conditioning was relentless. Long marches with heavy packs through jungle, swimming for hours, endless repetition until skills became second nature. Cultural preparation was crucial. Operatives working with indigenous populations in Borneo, New Guinea, or Pacific Islands needed more than language skills. They had to understand local customs, religious practices, social hierarchies, and taboos. Building trust with communities was essential because these networks provided intelligence, served as guides, and fought alongside Z Special against the Japanese. This operation put Z Special on the map, even if most people didn't know about it for decades. By 1943, Singapore was a crucial Japanese shipping hub. Thousands of tons of supplies flowed through weekly supporting Japanese forces across Southeast Asia. The Allies needed to disrupt this, but conventional bombing wasn't working. The harbor was too well defended. Z Special devised an audacious plan. They'd sail an old Japanese fishing boat called the Crate over 2,000 miles from Australia to Singapore through enemy waters. Close enough, a small team would use folding canoes to paddle into the harbor at night, attach limpet mines to Japanese ships, and paddle back out. The 14-man team, led by Major Ivan Lyon, a British officer who'd escaped Singapore's fall in 1942, left Australia in September 1943 disguised as fisherman. The crate looked perfect for the role. Old, beat up, nothing special. For weeks they sailed through enemy waters where one inspection would end everything. Navigation avoided major shipping lanes and patrol areas, but you can't completely avoid contact. Several times they spotted Japanese vessels and had to play it cool, acting like simple fishermen. One suspicious officer deciding to board could have meant death for everyone. They reached an island 40 miles from Singapore and prepared. On September 26th, 6 men in 3 fold boats launched and began paddling toward the harbor. They faced strong currents, patrol boats with searchlights and constant risk of detection. All in complete darkness, because any light would give them away. Reaching the shipping anchorage, they worked with cold efficiency. They identified 7 high-value targets, mostly tankers and cargo ships, critical to Japanese supply chains. Moving quietly from ship to ship, they attached limpet mines below the waterline. These magnetic explosives stuck to metal hulls and had time delay fuses, giving raiders hours to escape. One dropped paddle, one cough, one moment of bad luck could alert the Japanese. After planting all mines, they paddled back out the same way. The return took hours with absolute noise discipline maintained. When they made it back, they collapsed from exhaustion, but couldn't celebrate yet. They had to wait for detonation and then make the long voyage home. The next day, the mines exploded perfectly. 7 ships totaling 37,000 to 40,000 tons were sunk or severely damaged. The Japanese were blindsided. They had no idea how it happened, who was responsible, or where attackers came from. Meanwhile, Z Special calmly sailed back to Australia over the next weeks, completing a 4,000-mile round trip without losing a single man. The success was extraordinary. Achieving that destruction through conventional air raids would have required dozens of bombers, hundreds of airmen, and inevitable aircraft losses. Z Special did it with 14 men in a fishing boat and canoes. The operation remained classified for years because the Allies didn't want to reveal their special operations capabilities. Success can breed overconfidence. In 1944, riding high on Jaywick's triumph, Z Special attempted an even more ambitious follow-up called Rimau. They'd hit Singapore harbor again with more men and equipment. Major Lyon led again, but from the beginning things went wrong. Instead of a surface vessel, Rimau used a submarine to get closer, then transferred to a captured Japanese vessel. They were spotted by local boats early and word got back to the Japanese. Despite the compromised situation, they pushed forward. Some members got into the harbor and placed mines causing limited damage. But the Japanese were actively hunting them now. What followed was a nightmare. The team scattered, trying to evade capture and reach Allied lines. Over the following months, the Japanese mounted a massive manhunt with patrol boats, soldiers searching islands, and informant networks. One by one, Rimau team members were tracked down. Major Lyon was killed in a firefight. Others were captured after running out of supplies. Some held out for weeks before being cornered. Out of 23 men, not one made it back to Australia. For the 10 captured alive, their fate was particularly grim. They were transported to Singapore, held as prisoners, and executed by beheading in July 1945, just weeks before Japan surrendered. The Japanese refused to treat them as legitimate prisoners because they'd operated in disguise and used captured equipment. Under their interpretation of international law, this made them spies who could be executed. Rimau's tragedy cast a heavy shadow over Z Special. It was a stark reminder of the incredible risks, but it also demonstrated their character. Every man on that operation knew the odds. They knew what happened to commandos caught behind Japanese lines. They knew about torture and executions, and they volunteered anyway because the mission mattered more than personal safety. While Jaywick and Rimau get most attention, Z Special conducted dozens of other operations throughout the Pacific that were equally important. In Borneo, operatives parachuted into jungle and spent months working with indigenous Dayak communities. The Dayaks hated the Japanese occupiers but needed training, equipment, and coordination. Z Special provided all three. They taught guerrilla tactics, supplied weapons, gathered intelligence on Japanese movements, and helped coordinate actions with Allied forces who would eventually liberate Borneo. These long-duration operations required incredible endurance, living in jungle for months, constantly at risk of disease, dealing with heat and humidity, never sure if the next people you encountered would be friendly or hostile. Operatives had to earn trust through actions over time. In New Guinea, teams conducted reconnaissance before major Allied invasions. They'd infiltrate at night, then spend weeks observing enemy positions, counting troops, noting weapons placements, and identifying the best landing beaches. The intelligence they gathered could mean the difference between success and bloodbath. They ran search and rescue for downed Allied airmen behind enemy lines. Imagine being a shot-down bomber pilot hiding in jungle, not sure if anyone knows you survived. Then Z Special operators appear, guide you to pick up and get you home safely. Sabotage missions were regular tasks. Sneak into Japanese ports, destroy fuel supplies, blow up ammunition dumps, cut communication lines, or damage ships under repair. These created constant pressure, forcing the Japanese to divert troops and resources to guard against threats instead of using those forces at front lines. Some missions focused on psychological warfare. Z Special would conduct raids designed to make the Japanese nervous, hit an installation, leave obvious signs, then disappear. The Japanese would wonder, where will they strike next? How many teams are out there? This uncertainty had real operational value because worried commanders make defensive decisions that limit offensive capabilities. Z Special officially disbanded in 1945 after Japan surrendered. Most operations remained classified for years, which is why so few people know about them despite their achievements. Their legacy influenced post-war Special Operations Forces. When the Australian SAS Regiment formed in 1957, it drew heavily on Z Special's lessons. Many training protocols, emphasis on small unit operations, and unconventional warfare, philosophy came straight from Z Special. The British SAS exchanged extensive knowledge with Z Special veterans about jungle warfare, maritime operations, and working with indigenous populations. American Special Forces also studied Z Special's operations when developing unconventional warfare capabilities during the Cold War. Today, Z Special is finally getting recognition. Museums in Australia and Singapore have exhibits about their operations. Books and documentaries explore their story. Military historians recognize Operation Jaywick as one of history's most successful small-scale raids. A memorial in Singapore honors the Rimau team members who were executed, reminding us of their sacrifice and the brutality they faced, but also their courage and commitment even when facing almost certain death. Z Special pioneered techniques modern Special Operations Forces still use. Small, highly trained teams conducting strategic missions behind enemy lines is now standard for Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and SAS, but somebody had to figure out how to do this effectively. Z Special was among the pioneers who wrote that playbook. Their story demonstrates unconventional warfare's strategic value. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy isn't through massive, conventional forces, but through smart, targeted operations causing disproportionate damage. 14 men sinking 40,000 tons of shipping is incredible compared to the resources needed for achieving similar results through bombing. Z Special embodied coalition warfare before it became standard. They proved soldiers from different countries and cultures could work together effectively. In today's military environment where operations involve multiple nations, that's essential. Finally, their story is genuinely inspiring. These were ordinary men who volunteered for extraordinary danger. They trained hard, planned meticulously, executed with precision. When things went wrong, they adapted and persevered. They showed remarkable bravery without seeking glory. Many knew they might not come home and went anyway because they believed in the cause and trusted their teammates. That courage deserves to be remembered. Z Special Unit represents a fascinating corner of World War II history that deserves more attention. While popular culture focuses on major battles, units like Z Special fought a different war in Pacific jungles, islands, and coastal waters. A war fought in shadows where success meant nobody knew you were there, and failure meant death. They proved creativity, courage, and training could overcome impossible odds. They demonstrated small teams could achieve strategic effects far beyond their numbers, and they paid a terrible price, with many never making it home. Modern special operations forces use techniques pioneered by units like Z Special. The technology has advanced, equipment is superior, but fundamental concepts remain. Highly trained volunteers conducting dangerous missions in enemy territory to achieve objectives conventional forces cannot. Z Special Unit. The commandos you've never heard of who did incredible things most people still don't know about. Now you know their story. Share it, remember them, and honor their sacrifice. These men earned their place in history, even if it took decades to become public. Like, share, subscribe, and drop your suggestions in the comments. See you in the next one.